What if I told you that Oscar Piastri, with fewer laps, less time on the track and more pressure on him, was able to humiliate Lando Norris on his own turf during the Barcelona tests? Are we facing the true technical leader of McLaren facing the new hybrid era 2026? The entire paddock was frozen. That Thursday, in the middle of the usual calm of a testing session in Barcelona, something happened that no member of McLaren had anticipated. Oscar Piastri, with only 48 laps on the track and a program reduced due to a fuel system failure, had achieved a lap time 3/10 faster than Lando Norris's the day before. But that time difference was just the tip of the iceberg. The most striking data for the media was simple. The 1 minute and 18.419 seconds that Piastri set placed him fourth in the unofficial table of the day. But inside the Woking garage, what was most surprising was not the position, but how he arrived at that time. While other drivers were accumulating laps to find a feeling, Piastri seemed to need only a handful of turns to adapt to the car as if he had been developing it for months. That time was not only faster than Norris's, but he achieved it in less favorable conditions. Slower track due to temperature, higher fuel load, side wind in the second sector, and without having yet carried out a complete qualifying simulation. The most intriguing thing is that Piastri's return was neither a desperate attempt nor the result of chance. It was part of a technical run with used C3 tires, without extreme engine mode and without the benefit of slipstream. And yet, it generated performance that left more than one engineer staring at the monitors in silence. There was even a tense moment inside the box, when a member of the technical team suggested that the difference could not just be attributed to driving style. That forced them to review the telemetry data in detail, and what they found was not an anomaly, but a pattern. Piastri was braking later, rotating the car faster into turn 7, and accelerating before Norris at the exit of turn 10. In technical terms, the car had better lateral stability and traction with Piastri behind the wheel. But that is only possible when the driver blindly trusts the behavior of the car. And that is not achieved by pure talent. That is trained. Or it is understood. And this is where the real impact comes in. Oscar Piastri's ability to read the car. In his post-session feedback, he described the behavior of the rear axle in fast corners with terminology that is rarely heard outside of an aerodynamics engineer. He talked about asymmetrical side loading, early mass transfer, and micro-vibration decoupling in the front axle, something that made his engineer Tom Stallard look up from his laptop and listen with real attention. It wasn't just a driver saying, "The car is moving." He was a specialist interpreting mechanical behavior and proposing practical solutions. He had read the car and he had read the circuit all in just 48 laps. This, of course, generated an inevitable reaction. Lando Norris, who had had a good day earlier and whose technical leadership had not been questioned in a long time, asked to repeat some of his simulation runs with changes suggested by Piastri's technical analysis. A decision that, although disguised as technical curiosity, reflected a silent paradigm shift. For the first time, at least from the outside, it seemed that McLaren had two drivers operating not in a hierarchy, but in direct competition for technical command of the team. In the internal world of Formula One, where information is power and the development of the car depends on both the talent and intellect of the driver, what happened that Thursday in Barcelona could mark a before and after. Piastri was not only faster, it was more precise, more efficient, and more valuable from a technical point of view. While the press continued talking about the half a second, another piece of information was already being discussed within the team: how many tenths had been saved in the development car with just one session. And that is a metric that, in Woking, weighs much more than any timetable. At first glance, it may appear that McLaren wasted the first 2 days of testing in Barcelona. While teams like Ferrari and Mercedes had already accumulated more than 400 laps, with drivers adapting to real track conditions and accumulating kilometers in reliability programs, McLaren remained silent. Without rolling. No visible activity on the Catalan route. But this was a deliberate decision. Coldly calculated. Andrea Stella, team director, together with chief designer Rob Marshall, decided to implement a philosophy that challenges the traditional dogmas of Formula One, prioritizing remote development and technical validation in simulation before physical mileage. In other words, McLaren opted to first understand its car in the laboratory before putting it on the track. And in a year as sensitive as 2026, where new regulations have reformulated key aspects of aerodynamics, minimum weight, energy distribution, and thermal behavior, that decision could make the difference between leading or falling into technical confusion. McLaren isn't just building a fast car. It is building a new way of thinking about Formula One. One where every second on the track is the end result of hundreds of previous hours of validation and prediction. and that, perhaps, will be its greatest advantage for 2026. But where the aggressiveness of the design is most noticeable is in its dynamic behavior. Engineers have internally described the MCL40 as a car that does not forgive mistakes, but rewards perfection. This means that drivers with a clean style, like Oscar Piastri, can exploit their capabilities in technical sections without suffering instability. And at the same time, it forces drivers like Lando Norris to readjust their approach, braking more progressively and better controlling traction on corner exits. That change in the way the car is driven has been the subject of internal debate in Woking. Not because there is a problem, but because it reveals something deeper. The MCL40 is no longer a car made to correct driving errors, but to reward surgical precision. This design philosophy anticipates a future trend in Formula One, where the car becomes a technical extension of the driver and not a corrective of his faults. So when McLaren declares this is its most innovative car in 2 decades, it's not marketing hyperbole. It is a statement with technical weight. Because the MCL40 doesn't just seek to be fast. It seeks to be smarter, more adaptable, and more coherent with a Formula One that no longer rewards only raw power, but comprehensive efficiency. And when you see Oscar Piastri be faster from the get-go, it's not just a matter of talent. It's because his way of driving, his analytical ability, and his calm under pressure fit perfectly with the philosophy of the car that McLaren has built. The MCL40 is a precision weapon, and whoever understands it best will dominate the championship. But what happened with Oscar Piastri in Barcelona has put that hierarchy into question. Not in a declared way, but tacitly. The Australian was not only faster on the track, it was clearer in the feedback, more precise in the adaptation to the car, and, above all, more influential in making technical decisions during and after the tests. His ability to identify areas of improvement in just 48 laps forced engineers to re-evaluate the direction of certain setup parameters that had originally been defined by Norris and his immediate entourage. These types of dynamics are not altered without consequences. According to sources close to the team, some adjustments proposed by Piastri, particularly in the regenerative braking distribution and thermal management of the hybrid package, ended up being implemented in Norris' car during its second simulation run. And although it was publicly described as a joint team decision, the reality is that it was data evidence that pushed the change. In a sport where internal politics are as important as on-court performance, that has much deeper implications than a simple technical adjustment. What is at stake here is not just who is faster in a test session. He is the one who sets the technical direction of the team, who has the last word when there are differences of interpretation, who sits first in the engineering meeting, who takes the initiative in the simulator sessions, and ultimately who becomes the center of gravity of the McLaren project towards 2026 and beyond. Lando Norris is not in danger due to performance. He is still fast, consistent, and charismatic. But for the first time since Carlos Sainz left the team, he faces a real threat within his own garage. And not a disruptive, noisy, or political threat. Quite the opposite, a silent, methodical, and technical threat. Oscar Piastri does not seek to displace anyone. But his results, his competitive intelligence, and his growing connection with engineers are doing the work for him. In addition, there is another factor that has begun to be discussed internally: the compatibility between driver and car. The philosophy of the MCL40, based on precision, stability under pressure, and surgical use of ground effect, seems to fit better with Piastri's sober and methodical style than with Norris's instinctive aggressiveness. It's not a question of talent. It is a question of technical symbiosis. And in modern Formula One, where the margins are thousands, that connection can be the difference between winning or finishing second. Andrea Stella himself hinted as much in a recent interview, when he said that a pilot's ability to translate data into action is as important as his pure performance. Those seemingly innocent words have been interpreted by many within the paddock as a sign of recognition towards Piastri. The answer is not simple. There are those who will say that the tests mean nothing, that what counts is Sunday with the traffic light going out and the points at stake. Others will argue that the true value of a driver is in his ability to build a team around him, to connect with engineers, to mold the car to his style. And there are those who will simply see this as another internal rivalry, a classic battle between consolidated experience and silent hunger. And if you think this is just the beginning, tell me what you'd like to see in the next video. Would you be interested in a full analysis of Piastri's driving style versus Norris's? Or would you like us to break down that famous 1 minute and 18.419 seconds run lap by lap and reveal why it was so shocking for McLaren from a telemetry and internal data perspective? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.